Welcome to She Sells Radio and hello from the RV. If you are watching the episode on YouTube, you can see a little behind the scenes here as I'm recording. It's just me right now. I just had Jason go take Jack for a drive, and it's me and the puppies right now as I record. And I have to tell you, I'm excited to be here for a number of reasons. So one thing that you have probably noticed if you've been a long time listener is I've really given myself permission over the past month-ish, and it's something that I plan to continue to do, to record when I am inspired to share something with you. And that was a bit of a tough one for me to get over because there's so much conditioning. And even in some of what I have taught about personal branding and sales growth, it's like consistency is everything. There's a lot of valid information out there and thought leadership out there that like you have to have a very consistent schedule with your recording and with what you put out. And I did that for quite some time, and I may go back to it as we go into my kind of maternity leave, right? It's not I don't know if it's ever really maternity leave when you run your own company. But as we go into that over the next month or so, I do a bunch of episodes pre-recorded, like amazing interviews that we've never released before. So those will come out every week. So you'll have consistency there for me. But in terms of the solo episodes, we got back from our Sedona retreat last week, and today I'm going to share a lot of like ahas, breakthrough moments for me, for the women, things that you can apply in your own life. And I had time scheduled on my calendar the day after we got back from Sedona to record a podcast. And I have to tell you, like, I just didn't have it in me. And it's easy, it's one thing, like probably outside looking in, you can be like, well, yes, Elise, and you're 35 weeks pregnant and you just hosted a big retreat. And of course you're going to need time to decompress. And there can still be a bit of that voice, at least in me. I'm assuming you can relate in some way, shape, or form. That's like, oh, but you should, but it was on your calendar. And I've just found like I've just really committed now. I'm not going to do a social post unless it's inspired. I'm not going to put out a podcast unless it's inspired. I'm not going to send you an email unless it's inspired. And so I think everyone is too busy and has too many things going on to listen to forced, canned, uninspired content coming from someone who, and I'm not saying that this was me, hopefully this is never how I came across, but I know sometimes I felt like I had to put stuff out, right? So coming from someone who feels like they have to put something out to check a box, that's not how I'm going to roll in my content. So here I am. I am actually very inspired to share this with you. I waited until I felt really, really lit up about the download and the message that I know has been kind of like percolating in me in about the week since we got back from Sedona. And this is just going to be me sharing from the heart. And as I record this, if you've been watching behind the scenes on Instagram, we are finally on our RV trip, another RV trip. It's been, gosh, I don't know, 6 months, I want to say, since we took one. And I was like, oh, like just missing being out here, but we had moved, and there's just been a lot going on, honestly, with like Jason studying for school and my business, and then us getting pregnant and, figuring out a situation with Jack and taking care of him at home. And so honestly, it's like, it just had not aligned or really worked out for us to take an RV trip. We were actually going to take the RV out to Sedona. Some of you know this who were there. We were going to drive it out and do like a cross country road trip, but we were going to do it because I was so close to the flight deadline of when you can and can't fly as a pregger lady. But it would have required Jason driving for like 5 days before he took his MCAT, taking the MCAT in Arizona. And at the advice of a very smart mentor of mine, who was like, what the F are you doing having him drive the RV 5 days before his MCAT? That's a terrible idea. I was like, you know what it kind of is? We just hadn't really thought about it. We're so adventurous. We're like, yes, we always just make things work. And I'm sure it would have worked out, but we decided to postpone it and well, not postpone it. We decided to cancel that trip. We flew out instead. We had very interesting flight antics. I'll share some of them on the show today. But so yeah, we're back in the RV. We're in the mountains. It is so beautiful. If you've been watching behind the scenes on Instagram, I think I started all of this with saying that you've seen some of the view that we have here. And I don't know about you, but for me, like there is just something. I'm a girl who can live in like a city penthouse. And then also there's something that is so restorative to my soul about being out in nature and being out in the mountains. So I'm kind of here for all of it. Let me know, send me a DM if you're similar, if you're like, yes, I love all of it. I love the city vibe. I love being in the thick of things. I love like luxury and all of that. And I also really love the mountain vibe or the outdoorsy vibe. I don't know that I'm ever going to be caught in a tent, but I will be in the RV overlooking the mountains and enjoying the view. No disrespect if you like camping in tents. I have a lot of respect for that. And we've watched people do that out here on the campsite and it always looks cool. It's just, I need a good night's sleep. So all of that to say, finally getting a quiet moment here, feeling inspired. We've been back for about a week from the Sedona trip, and I think it was one of those where I needed a bit of time to like decompress because there was so much that happened so fast. It was really, it was transformational for me on many levels, and I'll share some of that today. Definitely transformational for the attendees. And I've kind of just been in like a quiet mode for about the past week, getting back from that. And one thing that was really cool this year, I'm going to share with you, I would say like 3 of the biggest things that I learned or that I'm really taking away from our time together at the retreat. But one thing that was really neat was this was the second year I've done this. So we did this in December of 2021. And then, I thought January might be a better time for people because it's like New Year's, setting new goals. So we pushed it to January of 23 instead of December of 22. And I remember the first time I was there, and now I had amazing team there, right? So amazing videographer, amazing event planner, my amazing photographer. But I remember just feeling this yearning, like I really desired to have more true, like She Sells team members there with me the next time I did a retreat or an event of that size. And this year, what was so cool was not only did we have all the amazing team from the last year, so shout out to my photographer, Claire, event planner, Lori, Bobby, our videographer. He's like the token wonderful man of our She Sells Sedona events who can kind of blend in and like let it be a very powerful moment for the women. But he's so great. But then I also had, we had our new She Sells consultant, Laura, who is just phenomenal. She's been in the community. She started off as a client and is now going to get certified as a consultant, kind of working with me on a number of things. And then Cassie, my director of operations, was out there too. And it was such a different vibe to have a much greater level of support. I say support, meaning, of course, their energy there felt very supportive to me. And then also like they're doing a lot to help facilitate the retreat and event too. And it was just this cool full circle moment of, I remember I had set that intention about a year ago that the next time I did it, I wanted more internal team there with me. And here they were. And it was so powerful. And I think it didn't feel like a huge energetic output while I was there, I think partially because of that. But then I got back home this past week and it was just like, whew, I need a minute to just breathe and integrate and soak it up. So I haven't shared a ton on social right now, where obviously this is the first podcast I'm doing about it, because I just needed the space to really, I think, give myself a moment to breathe. That's actually part of why we're out in the RV right now. And that's one thing I would say is really honoring your body's energy levels and what you need is so important. Because there was a part of me that was like, oh, you were just at a luxury resort for a week, and why are you feeling like you need to rest? It's like, hello, girl. Not that there needs to be a reason why, but it wasn't a vacation by any sense of the imagination, not for me at least. And so we're out here just kind of decompressing. And I think I'm feeling the energy coming back to be able to really, really share with you powerfully, well, hopefully powerfully, from the heart about some of the biggest things I'm taking away from that week. And so the first thing I would say with that very long preamble is to continue to allow yourself to dream bigger for what you create, for what you produce, for your life. One of the things that was really cool about this particular event is we had, if you are in the community, you probably are familiar with Toni Jones's music, because I recommend her to all my clients. If you're not, go check her out. She's this amazing affirmation musician. She's award-winning. She's performed on stage with, if you know Michael Beckwith from Agape Spiritual Center, like just really, really incredible woman. She was out there live with us. And I remember the first time I reached out to her, I'd become a fan of her music recently. And I've always been someone who's just like, why not reach out? Like, you never know. And that's honestly how so many amazing things have happened in my life. Partnerships, collaborations. It's just not being afraid to like put my hat in the ring for something, even if it feels stretchy. So this was pretty early on when I had first started listening to her music. I invited her on the podcast. You can go back and find that episode somewhere in the archives. It was, if you just search like Toni Jones, She Sells Radio, you should find it. It was really, really powerful. And then I've just kind of built like a bit of a relationship with her since then. And we had her this year as a guest mentor for the 50K Club, which was incredible. And then we had her out to do a private performance for our women and live coaching. And this whole thing was an experience. And it was one of the first moments of the retreat where I got to just sit there and receive, because I wasn't on stage for that point, obviously. And I sat there and I took it in. And it was like the first time I had really let myself soak in. Okay, like this is literally happening right now because you were willing to say yes and dream big and say yes to your desires. Like this was my internal self-talk, because so often we don't see ourselves. It's like other people can look at you and they think you have it all together. They think your life is exactly what it looks like on Instagram. But we know ourselves, and we know our internal fears. We know our self-doubts. We know our limited self-perception and how that can sometimes show up. And we so often don't see ourselves and see like what we've really accomplished and created. And it was just this moment where I kind of soaked it up. And honestly, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to sit here and like cry watching this amazing performance. These women's lives are getting transformed from her coaching, from her singing, from her lyrics, it was so experiential too. Like the things she included, it was really an experience, and it moved me in so many ways. But that would not have happened if I had said like, oh, well, she's there and you're here, and who are you to reach out? And so that's one of the things that I've just learned is like, never, ever, ever being afraid to put your hat in the ring, to reach out. And it's so interesting, even as I record this and say this, I'm just thinking about, and hopefully she wouldn't mind, but like a woman on my team who's just recently joined, it's like she reached out after listening to the podcast and kind of like pitched herself to be a part of the team. And I don't know, it may have been that same type of experience for her where she's like, oh, well, are they going to write back? And what are they going to think? I just think you following the nudges and the desires of your heart and continuing to expand the container of what you see as possible for you, and knowing that this is part of the theme of the retreat, is like, no one's going to come pick you. You've got to pick yourself. You have to pick yourself. whether it's you want to be in a certain type of mastermind or group and you're like, oh, am I qualified? Well, what about the other people in there? Or whether you want to go out and start a collaboration with somebody, or whether you want to make a certain amount of money, you want to launch something. Like, no one is going to come tell you it's time or you're good enough or any of that. You're the one who has to pick yourself with that. And so just noticing in my own life how I have picked myself again and again, and trust, like, it didn't come natural at first. And there's still times when I have to psych myself up. There's plenty of times I have to psych myself up to do it. So it's not like I was born with rock solid self-confidence. In fact, one of the biggest lessons that I feel like I've gotten to learn so far in this lifetime is around self-empowerment, self-love, self-worth, like all of that. Because there's a lot of conditioning early on that was the opposite. So it's not a, like, I woke up like this type of thing, but it has been one of the most rewarding and gratifying, like, ways of being to learn. And it's something that I strive to impart, to teach to all my clients, to you as a listener of the podcast and a member of the community. And I would say another thing that really was kind of like dreaming bigger this year, and it sounds a little simple when I say it, but it really did make a big difference, was just having Jack and Jason there with me the whole time. And last year when I came, it was actually the first retreat that I had hosted. So I've ended up hosting about 3 in the span of 13 months, I want to say. Yeah, 3 like decent sized ones in the span of about 13 months. And this was the first one where Jack and Jason were there with me the whole time. And the first one I did, I remember just thinking like, well, I hadn't given myself like full permission to, I think, ebb and flow very quickly between mom mode and wife mode, and then also work mode. And so I thought I need to have my energy like all in on just business and retreat mode and facilitator mode. And then they flew in at the very end, which was in and of itself a fiasco because Jack was still under 2 at the time. So Jason got 1 seat on the plane. So Jack was sitting on his lap for this like 6-hour flight from, I think we were in North Carolina at that point. Yeah, I think we'd moved to North. I don't know. I don't know where we were living. Maybe we were in Atlanta, but he flew in on his own. Like, it was insanity. 6 hours. You can imagine 6 hours with a little kid sitting on your lap, needing to get up, needing to move. And then he had another like 2-hour drive with him from like midnight to 2 a.m. after their flight arrived. And so by the time they even got there at the last retreat, I had just wrapped the event. But they were exhausted. They were like not in a great mood, understandably. They needed a couple days to decompress, and they were like there for 2 days and then they left. We all left together. So it just wasn't the restorative or fun experience that any of us were looking to have by having them come out. So this time they came out and they were there the whole time with me. And it was amazing. Like, it was so nice. It was what I had really wanted the prior year, but I had kind of like, again, I was like, well, I think I wasn't fully trusting my desire there. And we all learn, right? It's all a learning curve, but it was so good and so enriching and so rewarding to be able to like go home to them every night and see them in the morning and have breakfast together. Oh my gosh, by the way, the food at this place, Enchantment Resort in Sedona, if you have not been, I will just say, like, go there just so you can eat the food. I mean, it was amazing. And the women had breakfast and lunch included, and it was a no joke breakfast and lunch spread. It was very luxury, like very first class for these women. They will attest to it. If you ask any of them who were there, they were fed very well. But so I got to have like the best, like acai bowl. And I think there was like some sort of whole grain croissant situation, and eggs and veggie sausage and fruit. And God knows what else. It was amazing. It was amazing. So the point of that, dreaming bigger, that was actually what I wanted, but I kind of made myself wrong for it the first year. And when I finally just allowed myself to have it, it was so good. And then the final piece of dreaming bigger, and I'm going to tell you the next lesson. We got, like I mentioned in the intro, our flights out were, there was a lot of drama. There was a lot of drama with the flights. And I don't use that word lightly. I don't really carry a lot of drama around with me. I think energetically, I had been like, I had some emotional, what do I want to say? We'll just say some emotional drama like the last couple weeks, trying to like tie down loose ends and get stuff done. And so I'm fairly certain that that carried with me into the flight, because there were canceled flights, delayed flights, changed flights, flights where we sat on the tarmac and then they were like, oh, the plane's not working, you got to go back in. Jack projectile vomited all over my new coat that I had bought for the retreat right after the first flight, when we still had another 4-hour flight left, and the jacket stank to high heavens. I literally just ended up not using a jacket all week in Sedona, and it was cold. I mean, January in the mountains, right? It was cold, but I couldn't get the smell out of it. I know that's like pretty disgusting, but it just is what it is. Those of you who are moms or parents, you probably understand this. But here's the piece that was pretty powerful and fun. So we got upgraded to Delta One on one of the flights. That was actually the flight where Jack like spewed all over me, but fortunately he waited until the very end when we were walking off the plane. Let me just tell you, if you have not flown Delta One, my friend, you are missing out on life. It's actually problematic, because I told Jason, I was like, we can't do it any other way now, but they're usually like cross country or long distance flights. This was a very short flight. It was from Raleigh to Atlanta, and it was just the flight they happened to have, and it was our upgrade. So anyway, thinking bigger, expanding the container, getting yourself in environments that feel expansive to you, that feel like a yes to you, even if it feels stretchy. I was thinking about that even like as we booked the site where we are here now for the RV trip, and we just booked another trip for April with our family. Like, my conditioning and how I used to be was always about what's the most affordable. And I don't know if you can relate to that, but that was how we were kind of raised. And it was just the conditioning growing up, like, what's the best value? What's the cheapest? So that's how I used to do everything in my life. And I just am not up for that anymore. Like, when Jason was booking this site for this weekend, I was like, find the best one with the best view. When he was booking the site for April, find the best one in the best location with the best view. Like, the money will follow. The money comes, right? Your money is just a reflection of who you're being and your level of self-worth. So again, none of these things came naturally to me. Like, none of these ways of thinking are what I was conditioned with. I've had to like reteach myself in so many ways, and relearn so much in my relationship with money and worthiness and how I buy and how I circulate money. But there is something that is so powerful about being in an environment, whether it's a Delta One flight, whether it's a Sedona retreat at a gorgeous resort, whether it's like, you can't really see it from where I'm recording right now, but the most stunning mountain view right outside my window. Like, you are worth being in environments that feel expansive, whatever that is to you. Maybe for you, it is camping in that tent and that feels expansive. Like, go do it. I don't care what it is. Get yourself in spaces that help you dream bigger, think bigger, see bigger for yourself, and you're worth it. So that, I would say, is the first. The second of these three, let me actually take my biggest bottle of water ever on the planet. If you're watching the video, it just keeps going. But Mama's got to hydrate right now. Okay, the second. There is some real magic going on in our community right now. And I'm even impressed by it, moved by it. blown away by it sometimes. And that's really, to me, it's the power of community. That's the second lesson that for me stood out so strongly following this retreat. And what was interesting about this one, and this was a little different, the year before, we had more women come in from the outside community who weren't yet in my programs like 10K Club or 50K Club or private coaching. This one, we had almost, and it wasn't everyone, but almost everyone was in our community already in a coaching program. And I just learned like not to question what comes together. Because in my mind going into this, it was like we were going to have more women from outside come in. And for whatever reason, that didn't happen for this one. It was like mostly women who were already in our community. And oh my gosh, the energy that there was, because so many of these women knew each other, had been supporting each other, had been connecting with each other. And one of the dynamics that's so common that I see with the women in our community, and that I know because it had been like one of my stories for so long, is we have a number of women in here who say, like, I never had great female friendships. I never felt comfortable. I never liked hanging out with women. I would always hang out with the guys. And it's like, it's not just one, like there are quite a few women in this group that I found who are either, I'm going to say they either have just had, whether it's like wounding around female friendships or relationships where they thought they couldn't have them. We all kind of, like, many of us get that and understand that. Or they're in male dominated environments, some of them, or they just really felt like they had to do things all on their own, because again, there's a lot of that conditioning and belief system too. To see them coming together, and one of them, and if she's listening, she'll probably smile and know who she is. Like, one of her biggest things that she realized was going to create her own quantum leap this year was the ability to receive, like stepping into the ability to receive. And it is so key. It is so key for you in your business quantum leap, in your career quantum leap, in your personal quantum leap, to start to feel safe and comfortable receiving money, receiving clients, receiving help, receiving support, not feeling like you've got to do it all on your own, not feeling like you've got to be on your own with things. And it's part of my journey too. I mean, again, like, there's nothing that I teach now that I haven't had to like work on intensely in my own life. But seeing these women in, like, every night they would go like hang with each other or go have like a spa, like, so go to someone's room and have like a little spa party, or go to dinner together, or go support each other. And it was so powerful and so beautiful to me. And there is so much importance in you having a community, whoever that is for you, that you can lean on for support. Like, it really is critical. And it's been so fun since we got back for my mastermind, the 50K Club. It's just been like, we have a Marco Polo group chat. It has been blowing up. I went through on Friday morning and was like, okay, messages are responded to. A couple hours later, I just take a look. I tell the women, like, I go in there about once a day, because otherwise I would do nothing else. Cause I think it's fun to like be in there supporting them, chatting with them. But I usually try to limit myself. I go back in a few hours later, there's like 35 messages amongst them, like talking to each other and encouraging each other, supporting each other, like throwing out, hey, this is happening with this client, what would you do? Or, hey, here I am behind the scenes about to go teach this workshop on stage. It's just so cool. Sharing wins in terms of receiving more, some personal things for them. So there is just so much power in community. And I think part of it too is just how it helps expand your mind. So we offered a VIP upgrade for the women in attendance. And so we had like a segment of the women who did the VIP upgrade. And that involved an additional call with me beforehand, before the retreat, to like pre-plan. We did some energy clearing, set some intentions, do some custom work with each of them. And one of the women came into that call and we were all sharing like financial targets and goals for this year and what we wanted to create. And it's never, here's what I want to say too. It's never about like the woman with the biggest financial goals is the best. Like that's not it at all, because everyone is on a different step of their journey. To me, there's no number that like does or does not signify you've made it, you're successful. To me, I believe it's really about allowing in the amount that you need and require to live your most aligned life at this point, whatever that looks like. And for some women, that's, I don't know, however much a month. For other women, it's much more. But what was really cool was there was a woman in the group who said her target for this year was $20,000 months. And I knew that she really wanted more, but she was like saying what she thought she could get. And then another woman came in and was like, you could tell she was uncomfortable saying what her target was. And hers was $600,000 months, which was not a huge leap from where she is right now. And I just remember kind of seeing the eyes of this other woman light up when she heard that number. And it was the sudden realization of what she had been thinking might be big for her, that $20,000 month, suddenly seemed so small in comparison to what could be. And again, with money, it's all energy. So some women need $1 million month, a $2 million month, some women need a $5,000 month, a $3,000 month. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, when you're in community with people who are thinking bigger and showing up unapologetically, continuing to expand their purpose, their vision, their passion, what they're willing to receive, it can speak to and activate a part inside of you that has felt really uncomfortable saying what you actually want and going for what you actually want. And this woman reflected back after the fact. She was like, I'm going to remember when I said I wanted my $20,000 month on this call. And that was so cute. And she said it kind of in a joking way, because in that moment, her mindset had been shifted so powerfully, just being in the presence of someone who was showing up at a different level financially in her life. And it suddenly expanded the container for her of what she saw as possible for her. So again, it's not about a specific number, but it's about what I find for many of the women who come into our community, whether it's 10K club, whether it's 50K club, whether it's private coaching, they are in many ways and often kind of at the top of their game in certain elements. And they may not self-identify as that, but looking at them, like I can see that in many ways. And it either means like they are the most successful one in their friends circle, or they're the one who's like holding it together for their family, or they're the breadwinner, or they've always just been the one who like goes and gets stuff done and is successful, like even when they've got the inner work that they're working on along the way. And so when you're at the top of you're in the top of the class, or you're kind of like at the top of the container in terms of who you're hanging out with and who you're surrounded by, you can unknowingly limit yourself from expanding further. And it's very different when suddenly you realize like, oh my gosh, there's a whole world out there that's doing it at a whole nother level that you weren't aware of, because you were surrounded by people who were playing either at your level or smaller than you. So there is so much power in community. There is so much power in being seen and being supported in community. And that's something that I also felt so privileged to witness, both at the retreat and then also coming off of the retreat for the women going back into, again, 10K club, 50K club, like the way they're showing up, the way they're supporting each other, the way they're receiving support and help. It's just, there's these massive shifts happening quickly in their lives as a result of having that community. So if you don't have a community, get in one, whether it's in one of my programs, whether it's in somebody else's that feels aligned. I just think having that, being seen and being visible and being supported and not feeling like you've got to lone wolf it again is so key. One more sip of water, and then I'm going to talk to you about something that actually came from a dream that I incorporated in the retreat. So how's that for potentially interesting cliffhanger? Okay. So when I do retreats, I actually have really found I love more than teaching. I love like real-time facilitation and transformation with people. That's kind of my sweet spot and my jam. But I also do teach. And so I taught these 5 elements of the quantum leap that, to me, when I look back at my own life, and whether it was like, I've actually had quantum leaps in the 3 kind of different schools of life that I hadn't realized I had until I was reflecting on this content. And so I've had them health-wise. So going from, for 17 years, stuck and struggling with an eating disorder, to finally getting a breakthrough there, like a big breakthrough, and it's not a thing for me anymore. Relationship-wise, I hadn't really thought about this in my own life, but being in like I look back and I love my teen and my 20-year-old self so much. And her self-worth was so low. So it actually makes me a little emotional as I talk about it now. And I would put myself in the most terrible relationships because I was just wanting love, but they were terrible. Just put it that way. And finally, the shift came when I saw myself from a different level of consciousness, and I created a quantum leap in that area too. And now, get to have, Jason and I, our relationship isn't perfect, but it's pretty darn incredible. He's an amazing man. And, getting to be a mom to Jack and our other son, who will be here in about a month. It's just been I really have experienced a huge transformation in that area. That all came from self-worth. Okay, before I get too emotional about relationships. But the third one, my financial quantum leap, having been stuck at the same income level for 10 years, and then going from being stuck at $100,000 years to starting to have $100,000 months, like that, in a 6-week period. And I reflected back as I was mapping out these 5 steps. I was like, what were in each of those areas, what happened? And so I taught this framework that I've really seen in my own life is the thing that creates the huge gains, or the radical and dramatic and fast shift in circumstances. And it's not, look, when you're going for more, it's not always like that. I was talking with some of the women at the retreat, and they were like, they were like, why I'm working on my mindset. It's been longer than 6 weeks. I know you went from $100,000 years to $100,000 months in 6 weeks. And I'm like, yeah. And there was, excuse me, 10 years before that where I was spinning, stuck, thinking I was doing all the things. But when I applied what I now teach my clients, it happened really, really, really fast. So don't forget, the process, the leap for you, the shift, sometimes there is almost that preparation ground, that proving ground. And I think for me, I just had to get fed up enough of my own stuckness for it to finally change. But I was the only one who was limiting me and holding myself back in that. So anyway, all of that to say, I taught this framework. And one of the things that I taught actually came to me in a dream, maybe a week before the retreat. And it really, you have to have, for someone who was trained to be very logical and very analytical, whose parents went to Ivy League schools, who were very smart in math, were very, very well trained academically. it requires a shift in consciousness to start to trust what shows up in your dreams as, yes, this is good to teach at a retreat in front of this whole crowd of women. I'll just say that. But I had had this kind of framework show up, and I had had this one of the 5 steps show up to me in a dream that was like, oh, it's actually really that simple. Like when I looked back at the quantum leap in each of those areas for me, health-wise, financially, relationship-wise, this was a core part of it. And I'm not going to go just for I don't even know how long I've been talking. It's been a while. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go teach the whole thing right now. But what I will say is that the bottom line with the quantum leap is it is not doing more of the same. It is not you working harder. And that's one of the blocks that I see show up for a lot of women when they first come into our community is they think, I'm working X amount to get X financial result. And now, I want to double or I want to triple, or if I'm being really honest, I want to 10X or do more. They're like, I can't possibly work any harder though. Like I would burn myself into the ground. And that's understandable because they are working really hard. And it is a radically different way of being and thinking that is what has created the quantum leap in my own life in all of those areas. It wasn't about more of the same. It wasn't about putting my head down and just efforting harder. It was about a change in consciousness. It was about seeing myself as a different person than I had seen myself before. And that's why so much of this is mental, like 95, 98% of it is mental. And so, what do I want to share here? When you can start to ask yourself questions from the perspective of someone else, from the perspective of someone who has already accomplished the result that you're looking to accomplish. You may have heard there's a difference of thinking of your goal versus thinking from your goal. And this is part of it. This is part of the quantum leap, is learning to think from your goal rather than of your goal. And thinking of your goal is like, you're wherever you are and you have a certain goal you want to accomplish this year with your sales or with your business. And it feels distant or far off, right? You don't feel like it's happened yet. You feel separation or lack. That's how most people goal set. Well, it's a very different result when you instead say, now that I'm here, like now that I've achieved the goal, and you forget the how, you just skip the how, you kind of play pretend for a little bit. Now that I've achieved the goal, what am I thinking about? How is my life? What's happening? It's kind of like, I work with a number of women where they notice they have like repetitive, recurring thoughts around, how am I going to make the money? How am I going to make the money? How am I going to make the money? Whether they're making a lot of money every month or not yet, it's like it becomes this recurring thought pattern. And one of the things that I teach that I've really worked on in my own life and I continue to work on is like the woman who's there, she's not asking how, because that question is being poised from the place of this hasn't happened yet. It's more like, now that I'm here, now that I've made the money, now that I have the clients, what am I doing? Like, what am I thinking about? How am I feeling? Because your feeling state is so important with you ascending to another level of results, manifesting whatever you want to create in your life, in your business, in your career. Like your feeling state is so important. So how am I feeling now that I'm here? And we have to be so disciplined about the questions that we ask and where we allow our mind to go, what we allow ourselves to think about in the process, because it is a shift in consciousness. That's what the quantum leap is. Again, it's not more of the same. It's a shift in consciousness. And in fact, every time I've had what felt like a wow type of moment in my life, like, oh my gosh, like I felt like I was so stuck in this one area, and then suddenly I was no longer stuck. And it was a radically different, like everything shifted really fast around me to mirror who I was being. Not a single time did it involve working harder or doing more of the same. Every single time it involved me raising my level of consciousness about myself, my life, my self-worth, and then taking aligned, stretchy action. I'll say stretchy action because it usually involved something very uncomfortable, whether it was, leaving the relationship that was toxic, or verbalizing that I was struggling with an eating disorder and getting support there, or investing in myself at a level that felt wildly uncomfortable when I knew I was ready to change my mindset around business and self-worth and money. So it was not just continuing to do more of the same. It was a very different, stretchy action that put me way out of my comfort zone, but it wasn't like efforting, hustling, overwhelm, burnout, exhaustion. So hopefully that makes sense. That's the path. I mean, that's why, like, I just, like, do I even want to go down this tangent? Because this has already been a long episode. Um, no, we're gonna cap it there. But I'm never gonna be someone. If you have worked with me as a mentor, work with me as a mentor. Like, it's not about just checking boxes and doing more of the same to get you. Like, no one has time for that, right? If you're really ready for a big shift, it's about you completely shifting the way that you're thinking about who you are, your results, what you're worthy of, and then the actions that you're taking will shift pretty dramatically from there as well. And it actually is about getting far more results in far less time with far less effort, which, if it sounds too good to be true, it's not. It's just we are taught a very, as Joe Dispenza would say, matter to matter approach of achieving our goals in business, career, and life. And that's not actually the most eloquent or fast or effective path to get there either. So, my friend, this was fun. I had like 3 bullet points of notes that I wanted to share with like 1 sentence each. And so you got a lot of me just kind of riffing here, but I hope it served you. And one thing that I'm super excited to share too is I haven't really done this before, but I'm having fun this year with just playing with like different types of things to create for you that will help you, and hopefully also be a little more accessible for some people. So I had so many women say like, oh my gosh, like, I want to go to the retreat, but either the timing was off, or the tickets, like, it was like a $4,500 plus ticket to get in. So like the money was too tight or whatever. We had the whole thing professionally video recorded at a very high quality. And we are going to be sharing this with you and opening this up to you as an on-demand course that you can take part in. And I'm super excited for this because I know like just how many women were saying like, oh, I guess I'm going to have to wait until next year, or feeling really sad that they couldn't make it work for this year. And I just, like, there was so much transformation that happened. I was kind of in awe of it. I was sharing with a couple of people this week who asked, like, and I don't say this about most things I do. Usually I can look at it and be like, this could be improved, that could be improved. This particular retreat and event, there is not a thing I would change. Like, it was profound. The transformation that happened for women who were both at the beginning of their journey and women who were like, I'm ready to call in $1 million months. Like, huge shifts for all of the women there. And I want you to be able to take part of that. I don't want you to be limited and not be able to get access because you weren't able to join us. So we are going to be offering the recording of this as an on-demand course that you can access and have lifetime access to. I'm so excited. As I record this, my team is putting it together. So we're doing pre-sale pricing right now for it as well. So if you go to elisearcher.com/quantum leap course, elisearcher.com/quantum leap course, by the time you hear this, you should still have a few days of pre-sale pricing before it goes to the regular price. So basically, as we're wrapping up getting this recorded and packaged and ready and available, we're offering a couple $100 off of it for you to go ahead and get in. We're also offering a bonus group coaching call and kickoff call for everyone who enrolls before the date. I think it's, go check on the page to make sure this is true. I think it's going to be the cutoff to get the pre-sale pricing February 7th or 8th. I want to say it could be a little sooner, February 5th, somewhere between the 5th and the 10th, I will say, is going to be the cutoff for the pre-sale pricing. So if you listen to this in real time and you go check, see if you can still get it. Either way, it's going to be so worth it, I promise. But we're just trying to make it a little extra bonus for you for saying yes. And then it will be, the course content will be ready by mid to end of February at the latest, for you to get and have access to. We want to do it high quality for you. And we've got like a very special video shoot we did. We've got, obviously, like, you're getting the performance from Tony Jones, you're getting the coaching from her, you're getting a lot of live transformation from me. There's guided visualization. There's some of the most insanely powerful shifting questions for you to be reflecting on and journaling on as we go. And again, you get lifetime access to it too. And it is a fraction of the investment that these women paid to be there in person. So elisearcher.com/quantum leap course. You can go grab that, grab the recording. You are worth it. Like I said at the beginning, if it is speaking to you, trust, go get yourself in there. Start soaking up the content. It's always amazing to me when I just follow the nudges and say yes, even if it's something feels like a little stretchy or a little uncomfortable. When I follow the nudges, it doesn't take long at all to have the shift and be like, oh my gosh, that was literally the thing I needed to help unlock this whole area where I've been feeling stuck and spinning. And the quantum leap is about getting unstuck and getting you out of spinning. So you can go check that out. Get enrolled if it feels in line. If you are listening to this in real time and can grab it at the pre-sale pricing and get the early, the special bonus group call with me, that is really fun too. But either way, go grab it. All right, my friend, I hope you enjoyed this. I've had so much fun just like riffing from the RV here. And I also just want to say thank you for being on this journey with me. I value you. I think you're incredible. You are worthy of what you desire. Always remember that. And I will see you on our next episode.